Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something completely different and, frankly, a little terrifying. We are descending into a truly dark philosophical allegory. Right out of the gate, I want you to plunge yourself into the role of the protagonist here. Imagine you're this wretched scribe, completely trapped in your own Fichtean psychodrama. You're the architect of a world that is literally about to collapse under the weight of its own logic. This is the parable of the Sapphire Inversion, and it is a wildly vivid, grim, gothic fable that tackles meaning, morality, and staring straight into the abyss.
So the source text actually doesn't pull any punches. It addresses you, the reader, directly with this incredibly chilling quote, "Look upon your perfect limestone chamber, you wretched scribe." You know, you really thought you were the master of your perfectly constructed 6 paces by 4 cell of reality. But here's the catch. By boldly declaring "I am," you unwittingly set a massive philosophical trap for yourself. Your original, super self-assured assertion of your own existence didn't just build a world around you, it actively birthed this monstrous not I that is now staring right back at you, asserting its own undeniable, terrifying reality.
Okay, so the absolute core of all this is what we call the Fichtean inversion, which is basically the ultimate existential trap. Think about it. You built these heavy, structural stone walls to anchor your soul and define your society, right? But the crazy paradox here is that by defining the self, you inevitably define everything that is not self. And those very stone walls, they've completely melted down. They've literally become the absolute living ink that is actively writing your dissolution into the sprawling, terrifying Gothic night city. The exact tools you use to build your reality are the ones dismantling it.
Section 1. Eruption of Sapphire Light, the siege engine of high time. Let's get right into it.
So, you probably thought the gleaming Art Deco towers of modern reason and systematic law were going to stand forever. I mean, we all do, right? But then comes this violent catalyst, the eruption of the Sapphire Light. This represents a severe, unsparing, Nietzschean intellectual honesty known as Redlichkeit. Under this kind of relentless, blazing scrutiny, those beautiful towers of progress completely crumble into the Arthurian armor of a dead morality. The static reality you trusted is just violently dismantled. It exposes modern systemic law as nothing more than the structural reality of the abyss.
And in this blinding sapphire light, the sunny bazaar of human commerce is exposed for what it really is, a temporary, rotten canvas. Honestly, for the everyday merchant class, this is essentially an existential death. Why? Well, they define their entire self, their Fichtean I, by the rules of trade and the polite fictions of society. So when that familiar social fabric is violently washed away by the light of truth, their subjectivity completely evaporates. It leaves them totally adrift in the rain-slick dark, stripped of any real identity.
Moving on to Section 2, the Spirit Siblings Feast, the Agents of Dissolution.
These 3 siblings are so fascinating. They act as the ultimate personifications of the not I, and they actively tear down the pillars of your old state like absolute graphic novel villains. First up, we've got the Wit, who strides through your shattered society drafting contracts of negation to legally and philosophically strip away the old Gothic type of social order. Then there's the Hunger, acting as a bard of the abyss, literally devouring the grammar of your empire's self-belief and all that forbidden knowledge you tried to lock away. And finally, crouching amidst the ruin, is the Small Gargoyle, consuming the corrupted noble shadows and the rot hiding right beneath your old world's gilding.
Now, the Wit is a particularly vicious character. He acts as the priestly jester, and he mocks you with this unsparing truth, the theological nightmare you posited and then tried to hide. It's chilling. He is the one who proves to you, the wretched scribe, that your so-called righteous law was never absolute at all. It was actually just a mask designed to cover up deep institutional rot. You suddenly realize you're a tragic prisoner of the very predetermined purpose you tried so hard to impose upon the world.
All right, Section 3. Iron Word versus Gargoyle. The limit of the Fichtean trap.
This right here is the ultimate philosophical climax of a whole psychodrama. On one hand, you have the Knight of the Iron Word. He was your silent anchor of thou shalt, but now he's fallen. He's been totally exposed as a fading vibration of failed logic, a hollow niche-mensch. Now contrast him with the Small Gargoyle. The gargoyle doesn't shrink in the darkness. He grows monstrously huge, feeding on the rot and devouring those static monuments to morality. It turns out rigid, failing structures inevitably just become an all-you-can-eat buffet for chaotic, expanding hunger.
Section 4. Birth of Shadow Beasts, flooded with sapphire science.
To really grasp this terrifying transformation, we have to look at the state's old, completely flawed methods of control. The grand plan was to contain all forbidden knowledge inside the Pale Inquisitor's iron stove. Just maintain a highly controlled, predictable cycle of revolt and reset. You really thought you could manage the truth. But then the hunger steps in and shatters this cycle entirely by literally drinking the living sapphire ink of your hollow grail. Boom! The entire control mechanism shatters into a million pieces.
And what happens with the eruption of that sapphire science? It's a kinetic blast of completely unfiltered, unvarnished truth, and all the old protective armor just melts away. Stripped of their comfortable institutional lies and moral shielding, the supposedly noble souls of your society don't actually rise to the occasion. Instead, they twist into uncanny, terrifying shadow beasts. They're suddenly forced to face the sheer terror of the real, staring into the void without any protection whatsoever. Which leads us to the final leg of our journey. Section 5. The Unwritten Horizon, the Twilight of Potentiality.
In this existential, gray twilight, the city walls of the mind completely dissolve. The mirror held up by the spirit siblings doesn't pick sides, it doesn't judge, it simply reflects the truths you denied the loudest, neutrally, right back into your face. The definitive inclines of old laws completely vanish, and the warm, cozy comfort of institutional lies is utterly gone. As a shadow beast, you are left with absolutely nothing but the terrifying knowledge of the void.
So this brings us to a massive, looming question. When all the old scripts are deleted, when the old gods are dead, and the entire architecture of society is exposed as a temporary canvas, who bears the heavy burden of writing the next line? In a complete vacuum of law and pride, that massive existential burden falls entirely on the individual. It falls on you.
And that leaves us with this final, incredibly provocative reality. The unwritten canvas awaits your trembling hand. When the structural reality of the abyss is quite literally all that is left, you are no longer a wretched scribe clinging to old comfortable rules. You are forced into the profound, terrifying freedom of creating meaning entirely from scratch. With your old walls completely dissolved, what truth will your shadow beast hand write in the sapphire dark? Thank you so much for exploring this dark fable with me today. And hey, keep questioning the walls around you.